So to get started, we'll open a folder in VS Code, and the first thing we'll do in this project is to create our images folder. Once we create our images folder, we'll put in our images. So we'll just paste them. Boom. Great. Having created our images folder, now these are just random images you can download on the internet, right? So you don't necessarily need to use the same kind of images. What's important is the code. So to begin with our code, we'll start with our HTML file, which we'll call index.html. Boom. Let's generate our boilerplate code. Let's change the text in the title to image slideshow. Good. In the body of our HTML file, we'll create two divs. The first one with the class name container, and inside our container div, we'll create another div with the class name slider. And that's it for our HTML file. The next thing we'll do is to create our styles.css file so that we can style our HTML, right? Having created our styles.css file, let's link it to our HTML file. Right beneath the title tag, we'll link our styles.css. Boom. Great. Now let's open our index.html file in the browser so that we can see exactly what we are doing. Great. So our file has been opened in the browser. We'll just split the screen between the browser and our code editor. Boom. Now let's head over to the styles.css to style our file. The first thing we'll do is to set every margin to 0 as well as every padding to 0. So by doing this, every default margin and padding in our HTML is set to 0. We set the box sizing property to border box as well. Great. Now let's style our container div. So we'll give it a width of 100%, a height of 100 viewport height, and for the background we'll be using linear gradient. So we'll give it a background of linear gradient, and with our gradient we want it to move 90 degrees, right? So our first color would be 0615 061255. Our next color would be 064 C55. Boom, we can see the effects already and they are looking very beautiful. The last color would be 1A660B. So that's it for our background. Then the next thing we want to style would be our slider div. This is where we'll be displaying all our images. We'll give it a width of 800 pixels and a height of 500 pixels. Good. Now the next thing we'll do is we'll give it a box shadow property, right? And we'll have 0 here. The next one will have 5 pixels, 8 pixels, and let's give our box shadow an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, and for the opacity we'll give it 0.3. So if we enlarge it, we can see our box. You can sort of see the outline, right? Yeah. Now let's take a look at something, right? We would want to position our slider in the center of the whole screen, and to do that we'll simply put a display property of flex on our container and set the align items and the justify content properties to center. Boom, and there we have it. We see that our slider has been placed in the center of the screen. Now let's give our slider a background image. Let's give it background URL. Boom. We also set the background size to cover. This allows our image to fit perfectly in our slider box. Beautiful, just like that. So we have completed the first part. Now what's left is for us to animate it such that after every few seconds the background image will change. And to do that, it's very simple. All we'll have to do is to set the animation property on our slider, and we'll call our animation slideshow. We'll give it a duration of 20 seconds and we'll set the iteration count to infinite. Now let's create our animation keyframes. So at keyframes, and the identifier is slide show. Good. At 20%, we would like to set the background to have a URL we use the first image at 20% and we'll set the background size to cover. Let's duplicate this part of the code 4 times. We'll see why in a moment. And then we'll change here from 20 to 40%, and we'll change the image from BG1 to BG2. Then we'll do the same thing for this place. We'll change it from 20 to 60%, and we'll change it from BG1 to BG3. Then we'll just go ahead to complete the rest. Good. So we are done. Alright. Now this should work. Let's just head over to our browser, and boom, there we have it. A simple slideshow using HTML and CSS only